Hey there, my friend. Welcome back to the show. My name is Deanna Yates, and you are listening to episode 294 of the Wanna Be Clutter-Free podcast. On today's episode, I am chatting with Eileen Stukane, and we are talking about hoarding and what happens when you inherit a house that was occupied by a hoarder and you didn't even know it. And you didn't know until you opened the door to it. It's a fascinating story. I am so excited Eileen is here to share it with us. We talk about how to help someone through this if you can find out before they pass. But her story of what she uncovered as she was going through these possessions and belongings and what it helped her see about her family and the healing process that she's gone through as she's worked through this home and the book that came out of it as well. Like I said, it's a fascinating interview. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. And I just really enjoyed the story and meeting with Eileen. So check it out. It's going to be a good one. But before we hop in, I want to say a big thank you, of course, to you for joining us today. I couldn't do this show without you. And so I hope that what you take away from this show is helpful in your daily life and helps you see your relationship with stuff in a new light and allows you to live a lighter, more clutter-free existence that will help not just your home, but your life in all aspects and areas as well. If you enjoy what you hear, can you please just leave a quick rating and a review for the show? You can comment over on Spotify as well. I'm able to respond to comments now over there. That was a fun new update they've made in the last year. And if you want to see what's going on, you can join us over on YouTube as well. All right. And one last thing, you can get show notes for today with resources that Eileen talks about today at wannabeclutterfree.com/294. Again, wannabeclutterfree.com/294. All right, let's get into it. Well, hi, Eileen. Welcome to Wanna Be Clutter-Free. How you doing today?
I'm good, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you. I think what we're going to talk about today is going to be very interesting, and I think you have a very unique perspective on decluttering and hoarding and the stories that our stuff tells. And so I'm really interested to get into it. But before we do that, can you please introduce yourself and tell listeners who you are?
Okay. Well, I'm Eileen Stukane, and I wrote a book called The House That Held Everything. And it's a story about my family's hidden hoarding and the secrets that were in a house of hoarding. But before I wrote this book, I was on the editorial staffs of Good Housekeeping, Cosmopolitan, and Self. And I gravitated toward health, the topic of health, when I was on editorial staffs. And when I decided I'd like to freelance and set my own pace, I was able to get a healthy eating column for Food and Wine magazine, and I wrote 4 women's health books that I co-authored with a doctor, and then did one on my own. So I think when I wrote this book, what subconsciously might have motivated me is health. The environment that I walked into just was not healthy. And I think that that stimulated me because that my interest has always been in writing about and helping people and talking about what you could do to make your health better.
I love that. And it's one of the things I talk about with our stuff because it is such a reflection of who we are and what's going on internally. It's just an external reflection of that. And we talk about mental health when it comes to your stuff, but physical health is such a big, important factor. And I think that's one of the things that when I was reading through your book struck me the most was just the breakdown of that physical health and how that environment was not conducive to living a healthy life. So let's go back to though that moment that you realized that it wasn't just a house to clean out. So walk us through the story, and how did you end up wanting to tell the story of the house that held everything?
Well, it started with the death of my first cousin. This house was a family house that my aunt, uncle, and 2 male cousins had lived in. And when the last person who lived in the house, the male cousins had never married or had children. And when that last cousin died, I, with my three other siblings, inherited the house. We were the next of kin. And my sister and I, this was in New Jersey, and my sister and I drove down, got the key, opened the door, and were horrified. And it was a house we had visited, many times, and it was a warm, comfortable house with a lot of elegant pieces of artwork, and here we were, we could barely get into the front door. And there was just a little goat path in the living room. Everything was at least shoulder high. And that meant going through the living room and the dining room into the kitchen. And we found out that the rest of the house was the same. And um, this this horrified me. I didn't understand how my cousin had reached this point of letting all this, of living in a house with all this accumulation. I mean, it looked like a landfill. So I didn't think I would write about it at that point. But what happened was my sister and I worked together to empty out the house over the course of a year. And by the end of the year, I had looked into what what might have driven my cousin to hoard, the last person in the house. And I went from feeling horrified from that first day to feeling great compassion for the suffering that he lived with, that made him live this way.
Yeah.
So I felt then I want to write about my journey from repulsion to compassion. And this
Yeah.
is what motivated me to sit down and do this, because I want other people to know that it's not like everybody just says, "Oh, this is how I want to live. I want to
Yeah.
pile everything up around me and not
Yeah.
be able to move." Um, no, that's it. There are reasons for things.
Yeah, for
So
sure. And
yeah,
and it was a surprise to you because you hadn't been to the home in a very long time, right?
right. It had been
Yeah.
a while because my cousin had put us off.
Mm,
His mother, father, and brother had died before him. His father had died 11 years before him, and he was alone in the house. So we hadn't been there. Whenever we tried to approach him, he said, "No, I'm in pain." He had back pain from a car crash. And this is one of the reasons I think he became a person who didn't leave the house and accumulated, was he was actually on OxyContin, uh, and and was tranquilized and suffering. And I
yeah.
think that had a lot to do with why he didn't move around and why he basically made a fortress of protection for himself because he was in pain.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it when you talk about it in those terms of the emotional side of what he was getting out of the stuff versus um yeah, like you said, it's not something that people think like, "Oh, I'm just going to suddenly fill my house with all this stuff and not be able to move around in it." It is something that gradually builds up, yes?
Yes, it was protective. Also,
Mm,
the three people before him who had lived in the house, I mean, this was his childhood home. All their things were
right.
still there.
Right.
And what was interesting, though, is that I felt he tried to make himself feel better because the house was filled with Christmas decorations. You
Mm,
know, on top of all this, sort of detritus, when we walked in the house was a little Christmas tree on top of a
hmm,
pile of boxes. And there were many, many Christmas ornaments scattered around.
hmm.
And I felt that he tried to make himself feel better, or he tried to remind himself of a family holiday that made himself feel good. Yeah.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
think maybe that happens with other people too, that they try to the things that are accumulated are things that make them happy.
Mm. Or remind them of a happier time.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah. One of the powerful ideas that you share is that possessions are these mini autobiographies. And so they tell a little bit of our story. So, how did the objects help you understand your relatives in ways that maybe conversations never did or you hadn't known before you started going through their belongings?
I really think I got to know each of them individually. I was able to pick up
Mm,
certain objects and say, "Oh, this is Uncle Mike's," or "This is Aunt Marie's."
yeah.
But, as an example, I found out that my aunt had little plastic bags where she would combine like a necklace and earrings that go together,
Hmm.
or a bracelet, and she had all these little plastic bags with things that she wrote were go-togethers.
Hmm.
And I realized that she was a woman, or considered herself a woman of style. And that was something I hadn't really thought about when I knew her. I just thought of her Aunt Marie who smoked all the time. not, not a woman who wanted to curate her appearance. And actually, she really had an artistic side. Also in the house, there I'm going to just show you the cover of the book because
Yes. Yes.
because
It's,
this this picture was the
yeah.
kitchen window, and she collected cut glass, and you can see how it is all
Yeah.
arranged in colors and shapes. And this and other things that I saw in ways that they were arranged and collected all made me see her as more of an artist and
Oh,
someone who wanted to have beauty around her, and she made very, very careful decisions. And I never ever thought of her as an artist at all when I knew her. But all this helped me see her artistic side, which was to me buried. And it
mm,
happened with other relatives there too. My uncle collected clocks and stopwatches, and I felt that he sort of wanted to control time in a way that I
interesting.
didn't know. That he really kept himself with the mechanics of watchmaking when he could have been with his family.
Mm,
Um, it was just eye-opening.
yeah. I'm curious, did you get to know them as you were an adult, or was it more of a, child adult relationship before they passed?
Yeah,
Your
well, I knew
aunt
them
uncle.
both, both. I knew them
Okay.
in my childhood because um, we lived in the same building in New York City. They lived on the
Hmm.
floor above us. So early in childhood, I knew them. And then later on, we both lived in New Jersey.
Okay.
So we visited, but we were not close. My uncle, who was my father's older brother, was not a warm and fuzzy man.
Oh,
And he, although my father was, and he would reach out to his older brother, he kept himself distant.
hmm.
So we saw each other, yes, but not a lot. But we did see each other. And my parents, as they got older, they went on some little trips with them, so they saw each other.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like we were very close. We weren't very close.
Sure.
Um,
Well, I just
but
find that fascinating, right? The familial relationship between, aunts and uncles and siblings. Um, because as you're saying, like you didn't know them as artistic
right,
when they were alive, but yet you
right.
discovered that about them as you were going through their possessions. And I'm just curious why something like that would be hidden or why they would feel the need to not show that side of them.
Um, I, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
that there were a lot of family secrets. I think it was a
Mm.
secretive family. as we as we went through the house, we found documents that really exposed family secrets that we didn't know. Um, and I think there was just a mood of secrecy. I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
I will get to the family secrets in a minute, but just to let you know how secretive they were, my aunt had a hutch where she had a lot of collected objects, a French hutch that had French doors, and she put brown paper inside the French doors so people couldn't see what she had. I mean, if I had seen what she had, I might have had a different opinion. But
Interesting.
anyway, uh, in family secrets, my father had always been told that his father died when he was 2 years old,
Mm.
and he grew up with a widowed mother. Well, we found later in life we did get to meet his father, who was supposedly dead. Um, and I'll get to that in a second. But through his life, he thought he had a mother who raised him as a single mother, and he didn't have a father. We found documents that showed that she was divorced, and she had a warrant out for my grandfather's arrest, and she knew where he was. And so did my uncle, my father's older brother.
Huh.
So these documents were stunning. Now, what happened in real life was, as my grandfather was ill, my uncle did tell my father, "Oh, I met someone who told me about this man who lives, down here in southern New Jersey, and I think he might be our father." So my father goes down to check, and sure enough, he met his father. But the crazy thing is that my uncle knew about this all the time, knew
My
where he
goodness.
was. And so my father did have one meeting with his father before
Huh.
he died. But why all this was kept a secret, why his mother and his older brother did not tell him, I will never know. And
Hmm.
all the documents, now, my grandmother died when she was young, when she was 52, only 52.
Wow.
So all the documents that I had in my hand in that house, my uncle had in his hand when she died, and there was no question that he knew everything.
Hmm.
Uh, and there were notes and cards from my grandfather to my uncle, and it's really amazing what you can find. The fact that people want to hold on to things sometimes is a good thing, because if all these documents had been thrown out, I would have never known. I would have never known the truth about my family history.
Right.
And that's a good thing. Um, we can talk about why it's so hard to throw out things.
I think we'll get to this point about like keeping the things that are more important than the others because again, as you walked into this house, you were saying you were, just affronted with, garbage and things that were um you know like actual garbage like from
Right.
takeaway food and things like that and the moment you opened the refrigerator that was
Yes.
not a good idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
I opened the refrigerator, and aside from the smell,
yeah.
the rancid smell of a refrigerator door not having been opened
Yeah.
in a very long time, there were, I mean, maggots and bugs
Mm,
crawling out of it.
mm,
And I slammed the door shut. And
yeah.
no one's ever going to open this door again.
Oh
And
my gosh.
it was really, I mean, that's part of the sanitary issue.
Right.
It was horrible. And we did hire helpers. We did hire helpers to help us clean out the house. And I said to them, take out the refrigerator on a day I'm not there. I
Yeah, well, you said
I
in
do
the
not
book that
want
was
to
going to
be
haunt your
there.
nightmares for years to come, and I can imagine.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can
Right.
imagine. Um,
Also, there was a freezer. There was a
yeah.
freezer full of food
Hmm.
for the last 10 years.
So you
And
don't think your cousin wasn't eating that? That was from,
I don't know. No, he
yeah.
wasn't eating that. That was
Yeah.
frozen food that had been there for
Huh.
years. And I asked the cleaners to take that out the same day they took out the
Yeah.
refrigerator.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Well, and I want to point out to everyone that the house had sat empty for months because just
Yeah,
through a ancestry.com search you guys discovered that he had passed because he had been so removed from you all on his
right.
of his own accord. You guys didn't know that he had passed.
No, it was my sister had just serendipitously be going through ancestry.com and saw that he had died. And she said, Bobby died? How did he die? And then
Yeah.
she looked into it and found out that he had, well, this is just an interesting story, having nothing to do with decluttering. But
I think I find this entire story very fascinating, and I think my listeners will too. And because it's not a story we get to hear a lot, we don't get the behind the
right.
scenes of these kinds of stories. So please tell whatever you would like.
Okay. Well, it turned out that we looked it up and in he had died in December, but he wasn't buried until June. He had died, and we said, what was going on? There was 6 months that, so I was able to, through research, just look up the funeral home where there had been a service, and I got the funeral director, and he said, well, we couldn't find you, which is ridiculous
Right.
because I have the last same name that he does, Stukane, and so do my brothers, who are all over the internet too. So I don't understand how nobody could find us. But they said because nobody could find him, he was in the morgue, and the medical examiner had him in a freezer. So my cousin was frozen for 6 months until the medical examiner said, I need the room.
Yeah.
And then what happened is because he was a Mason,
Mm.
the
Hmm.
Masons came forward and said, we'll do a service. So he was cremated and his ashes were put in a columbarium, which is sort of a niche, in the church, the Episcopal church, where his family had worshipped.
Mm.
So the priest there was just keeping them there, because they did have ashes from some other people there.
Yeah.
But it was a shock to find out he had died, that no one had told us that he was frozen for 6 months, and that now that house had sat there. By the time we got to it was a year after he died,
Right. Right.
and it had not been touched. It had not been
Yeah.
touched. It still had the police tape across the front door.
Yeah.
Um, what happens in these situations when a house just sits?
Yeah.
The state will sell it at auction, but the way and the way an auction, at least in New Jersey, goes, if someone doesn't, a developer say wants to buy the house, they have to pay the taxes on it for 2 years. If
Mm.
within 2 years nobody rises up and says that's my house,
Oh.
they keep it. But we rose up and said
Okay.
it's, it's our house, and we just had to reimburse them any taxes they paid, and that
Okay.
was, yeah.
Interesting.
So
Yeah, I
that's a
was
little
curious.
backstory.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was curious how long a house will sit vacant. And I'm sure, yes, state by state have different laws and things like that. But it's
Everything different,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was a year or two, but you guys had claimed it within that first year. So I did find that part fascinating as well, because there's all these little things you just don't think of, right? You don't imagine yourself being in this situation, so you don't think about these things happening or how they work.
Right.
Yeah. All right, let's get back into this idea of stuff because I think there is a balance for us to walk between this idea of uncovering these treasures and these secrets and these mini autobiographies of our loved ones versus
Mhm.
having to keep everything. And I know that decluttering, especially when we lose a loved one, is so difficult. And it's really hard to throw any of that stuff out because, even as you've said in your book, like you could feel their presence in these things. And so, walk me through a little bit of that, of how you decided what to let go of, what was the process of letting go like, and tips just to help people if they're dealing with, some loved ones things.
Um, well, there are a couple of questions eh, that
Yeah.
I'd like to break it down into a couple of
Sure,
questions.
please.
First, it is very hard to discard the objects of a loved one.
Yeah.
Um, what I did in my mother's house after she passed away, and we emptied that house, is we took pictures of things that we had trouble separating ourselves from, but we knew we never look at them really again. Um, I mean, sometimes it boiled down to like my mother's slippers or her makeup and or her hairbrush. So what we would do, and I found this very helpful for myself, is we took pictures and made an album called the Mom Museum.
Oh,
And so so
yeah.
we were able to throw things out, but we still had the photographs of them that we could
Mm-hmm.
look at whenever we wanted to. Because you just have so much room, physical room in your
Yeah.
environment where you can keep things. So that I pass
Yeah.
that on
Yeah.
as a as a
Yeah, for sure. I've heard that there are studies that show us that our brains cannot actually separate that physical item from just the visual item, that our brains still get the same dopamine, feel good feelings and all of the memories, even if we're just seeing the photo versus holding the actual
hmm
object. And you
hmm
found that to be true in your life, it sounds.
Yes, yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
have. I mean, I'm really glad I have the photos. And I, of course, I say things, certain things,
Of
but
course.
and in the house, um, what we did is we had a structure, we had categories.
Mm.
So it would be keep, throw out, auction, save. And we had these categories. Um, And oh wait, and there was a maybe in there too. Keep,
Okay.
no, not save. Keep, throw out, auction,
And
and
donate.
not sure.
Okay.
Not sure. So, so we would go through and we would be able to say that pick out, throw out things pretty easily.
Yeah.
Um, the uh, the auction things, there was there were valuables there. There was valuable artwork that we found and just Asian art ceramics that my aunt had. We had an attic that had 130 labeled boxes. They were numbered 130
Wow.
boxes. Um, the so it was easy to do certain things, to think, well, this is valuable, we'll put it in the auction pile. This is, this cracker box obviously goes in the throw out. And the not sure pile, of course, was the hardest part
Hmm.
because eventually you have to make a decision about the not sure pile. Do we
Right.
keep it? Do we throw it out? It wasn't that pile didn't have so many valuable things in it, but just things that were meaningful or represented the people who lived in the house or stirred memories for
Yeah.
me. Um, and I found that what was required was a great deal of courage.
Hmm.
That to say that this really reminds me of Aunt Marie, but I have one of her bracelets. I don't need this.
Right.
And so um, I was able to donate. Oh, that was that to donate too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did I say donate in my it was donate was also in the list. I don't have the list in front of me now, but um, we did donate too. So there
Yeah.
was a donate pile. Um, and I was able to do that. Now, in the end, I have to say there were things that I kept that I have that looking back don't matter to me so much, and some things that I threw out that I say, oh, I
Mm.
wish I had kept that.
Mm.
But I feel like that happens to all of us.
Yeah.
And I just say to myself, well, that's life. I made the decision, I have this, and I was brave enough to make the decision, so I'm going to live with it. But
Right.
it's not clear cut, definitely not clear cut.
Yeah, we all just have to do the best we can in the situation at the time we are in and know that we're not perfect, right? So we're not maybe going to get it 100% perfect, but I appreciate the honesty there that,
Hmm.
yeah, maybe I would have made a slightly different choice now that I'm removed from that
Right,
all of those tough decisions that I was making in a I mean, it did take you a year, but in a short time frame, right? Because
right,
again, you had a whole life going on in
right,
addition to cleaning out this house with your sister.
right.
Yeah.
My daughter got married the year we were doing that, and I
Oh
would
my
be making
gosh.
I'd be making wedding plans as we drove down in the car.
Yeah. Oh
No,
my goodness.
there was a lot. There was a lot going on,
What a year.
but I didn't go. I didn't go every week. It was spread out. We would go down for 2 or 3 days at a time. I'd stay at my sister's house, which was closer. I live in New York City. She lives in New Jersey. She was closer, so I'd stay over, and we'd go down for 2 or 3 days. And we were lucky enough to hire a company called Hoarders Express out
Hmm.
of out of Camden, New Jersey, and they were very flexible. They said, just come when you need to come, call us. We'll get our people together, and they let us sort of lead the way, and without saying, well, we have to have this done in 3 weeks because we have other jobs, which some people did say to us. So
Interesting.
so that was good. It was good finding a company that would be flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good tip right there.
Yeah.
Um, Talk to me a little about just this idea of hoarding. You said you had a lot of help along the way. You learned a lot along the
Right.
way about hoarding. What's something that we should maybe look out for with our families, or some things that you learned that you were surprised about?
Um, well, what happened is that I got very interested, as I said, in learning why. Why did this happen? How did this
Right.
happen? So I started to interview psychologists who worked in the field and tried to help people themselves and learn the whys and hows and from them. And it turned out that sometimes the idea of accumulating starts very young,
Mm,
um, where even as a child, I actually heard this story from someone who said, as a child, someone came to their school to give a talk, and afterwards she went up to the woman and said, "Can I have something of yours to remember this, like your earring?" And
interesting.
so she said she realized from very, very early on in life that she was not she was going to collect things and she was not going to let them go. Um, so it can start when you don't even realize it, um, and it can and unless you're aware that you're doing this, it can take over your life. Now, I did learn that there's a genetic component to hoarding too. There's chromosome 14, and that could have been going on in that family because they collected
Mm,
and called themselves collectors. But with my cousin, it went to the extreme. So
right.
I think that if you start noticing that you're collecting and you're not sharing, like collectors really buy and sell. They show their collections and they try to increase them or share them, um, but not just let them grow and not look at them. My aunt hid her collections. She had them in boxes in the attic. She had them behind paper in a French hutch.
Interesting.
And that's not truly collecting. That's really starting to hoard. So I would
Oh,
say if you notice yourself keeping things, not sharing, not wanting to display and just say this is what I have and wanting to see other people's collections, that that's a tip that you may be going in a direction you don't want to go. Um, as far as being there is a workshop called Buried in Treasures,
okay.
and it was started by two psychologists working together in Massachusetts, Robert Frost and Gail Steketee. And these workshops are group therapy sessions, and they're often sponsored by state health departments. So if someone can find a Buried in Treasures workshop, that's really a nice thing to do to help yourself and just talk to other people and see what they're going through and know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Because it comes from really a suffering inside you that you feel like you have to be self-protective and your things
Mm,
are protecting you. So that it can help to be with other people. Um,
always.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Always, right? I think that's so true. I think sometimes, well, I'm not even gonna say sometimes. I think we as people go to the extreme and we think no one else will understand me. No one else will know what I'm going through. No one else has been here before. When that is the exact opposite. There are other
Hmm.
people that are out there that have gone through it, that are willing to help and get you to the other side as well, if they have had that journey
Hmm.
too. And so we will definitely leave links in the show notes for all of these resources. Buried with treasures. That's a good one. We'll
Buried
have
in
to
treasures.
in treasures. Okay, we'll make sure we get
Buried
that
in treasures.
linked
Yeah.
in the show notes for
And
sure.
and in the book, I also in the last chapter, I have when someone you love compulsively hoards.
Mm,
If you
yeah,
want, like so many people feel like their loved ones, their close friends, their family members are in this situation and they are rejected by the person or they just decide not to deal with it because they've tried and it hasn't worked.
right,
I found out that, and I wish I had known about my cousin because maybe I could have helped him
right,
if I had known. But what ha what I have found through my research is that what has to be established more than anything is a foundation of trust. That if you have a loved one, go visit them. Just start talking to them. Don't talk to them about throwing out their things. Just talk to them about how they are and what they're doing and establish a foundation of trust. And when you have trust, then you can start talking more about what are your dreams and how did you think you would live when you were younger? Is this what you want? Is this what you wanted? Slowly, loved one will start, or hopefully will start realizing their inner thoughts and feelings to you, and then you can start suggesting maybe, is this important to you? Maybe we can get rid of this, or you know, even go on to bigger things. Also, I learned that there's a psychologist in California called Michael Tompkins, Dr. Michael Tompkins, and he has written about harm reduction. Harm reduction, actually, if you ever heard about the needle program when you give addicts, you give them a
Right.
safe place to get drugs so that they're not out in the streets. It's harm reduction sort of started from that as a core. And what he says, how he says harm reduction should be used is that you go into your loved one's house and you say, look at this pile next to the stove. Do you know what a fire hazard this is?
Mm.
Can't we just move this away so that it's not next to the stove? And this pile over here, well, this could fall on you. Let's move this over here. And maybe we can move it even out because what's in this pile, maybe you don't need this. But you start off talking to someone in a way that shows you care. You care
Hmm.
about their safety. And that's why you're trying to get things moving. And that can be a way too. So
Yeah.
I thought those were really, really important insights into how to help someone you love.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that's one of the bigger things is we feel helpless. We don't necessarily know what to do and we don't want to say the wrong thing, right? I think, you talk about how your cousin Bobby had a friend that would help him and would bring him food.
Right,
And I would imagine that he had tried to help at some point, but didn't want, almost felt like he was the last line for
right,
him, right? And didn't want to push too hard because he didn't want to cut off the only person that was coming to see him. So I can imagine that it's very difficult to find yourself in that situation where you are the helper and wanting to help them, but not knowing
right,
how. So I really appreciate the resources you've provided because that's going to be really, really helpful for listeners if they do find themselves in this situation.
right. And if you don't want to say it outright, you could use the safety issue as a
Mm-hmm.
starting point because that shows caring. That really
Yeah.
does show caring.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah. And it really is a safety issue because I think as you say in your book, I don't know if you're exactly sure the cause of death, but I think he fell and he couldn't get up and didn't have help and
I
yeah.
think that they said he had a heart attack and fell out of his
Mm-hmm.
chair.
Right.
And so when he was found, he was deceased. But the really sad part I found was that on his bed was like a half-eaten jar of peanut butter and a half a container of Gatorade on the little bit of bed that was available for sleeping. And I felt like this was Christmas. Was that his like Christmas meal? I mean,
Yeah.
that was very sad. And also he wasn't found. We don't know the exact day he died
Right.
because he was only found like 2 days after Christmas by his caregiver. The whole thing is very, very sad.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right. So let's maybe keep it on a little bit of a how do we make this a little bit more positive as we go? Okay. So
Well,
how
yeah.
oh good.
Well, I mean, I think checking in on
Yeah.
people, I think if I had it to do over again, I would not have listened to him when he
Mm,
said you can't come over,
right.
and and I'm in too much pain. If he would to go anywhere, at one point I offered him a car service, and he refused it. But I think if you have someone who's sort of saying, don't come over, you should sort of go over there and say, I care, and let's go out for a coffee, and let's go back to your house. And I think try not to try not to listen too much when people say, I'd rather not. I
Yeah.
think that we can all be there, even though it might seem impolite
Yeah.
at the start. We can all be there and help people and help each
Yeah.
other, you
Help
know?
each other. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's a great message for today's day and age is to help each other. Um,
yeah.
yeah. So after living with this house though for nearly a year and closing the door for the last time, how did the experience change the way that you look at your own home and your belongings now? Has it changed how you hold on to things?
Oh, sure. Yes, I walk into my office where I'm sitting now, and I just see too many books. Too many books all over the place, too many things. In fact, just this week, I realized I had the habit of every time I went, because I live in New York City, and I go to the theater a fair amount of time. I had a cabinet full of playbills,
Mm.
the playbills they give you when you walk into the theater. And just
Hmm.
this week, I said, I'm throwing them out. There is no reason for me to keep all of these so I can know I went to the theater.
Right.
So I wound up throwing all that out, and I'm very much aware of what I have and what I need, how I need less than I may think.
Right. It's definitely a good lesson. And congratulations. Good for you for throwing those out. That's a great revelation, right? It's
Yeah,
small, but it does make a big difference.
it did. Well, you know what? It made me feel lighter. I felt lighter after I did that, even though it wasn't a big thing.
Right.
It was it was still something that, and when you feel that lightness, you feel like, oh, I want to do this again.
Yes, absolutely. And what else do I
Yeah,
have that's just holding me back, that's been weighing me down that I don't realize necessarily is weighing me down? Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Eileen, this has been a fascinating conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to share this with us. I really enjoyed the parts of the book that I've gotten to read so far. You're a lovely writer. You have a wonderful way of putting just these emotions into print that we can read, and so I highly recommend picking up the book.
Oh,
It's yes, please hold it up again. We will
I'll do
definitely
it
link to
again.
it
The
in the
house
show
that held
notes.
everything.
The house that held everything. Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
online everywhere, or go to your bookstore or library. Yeah.
Perfect. Well,
Yeah.
I was going to say, tell people where they can find you. So yeah, you have a website too. What is that?
Yes, the website is my name, eileenstucane.com.
Perfect.
So,
Okay. Nice and
yeah,
easy.
yeah.
And then I love to close every show with three rapid fire questions. And so the first one
Dear.
is, what does clutter free mean to you?
What does clutter-free mean to me? It means that my possessions are organized, my environment is airy, and my mind is free to wander.
I love that last one. Yeah, for sure. All right. Number two, what is making you happy right now or in this season of life?
Well, to love and be loved by family and friends, and my good health, and the fact that the house that held everything is taking me to new places, like being right here with you.
Aw, so
It's
sweet.
really turned into an adventure.
I love that. I love adventure. And
Yeah.
number three, what's one small step listeners can take today to help themselves or someone they know or someone that's close to them let go of their tight grip on their things?
Um, First, I acknowledge that it's very, very hard. And because objects can represent not only yourself and your own memories, your own personal memories, but they can represent other people in your life. So I think the first step to take is courage, is to just say to yourself, "I'm brave and I can do this." And I, as I mentioned before, I'd suggest taking pictures of things that you might have second thoughts about. Take the picture and then let it go, and you still have the picture. Um, so I mean, that's the best tip I can give is to just say, be brave, and you'll make a mistake. I feel like, as I might have mentioned, that some things I kept didn't matter to me today. And some things I let go, I say to myself, oh, I should have kept that. But um, that will happen. That will happen. And you still have to pat yourself on the back because it's hard. It's
It
very,
is
very
hard. And I would like to point out that you don't 100% know, even if you kept those things that you're second guessing, if you wouldn't feel the same way, about them now. If you'd be like, oh, I didn't need to keep those. If you had
Mm-hmm.
kept them, because I think we just have this human instinct to long for what we don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, right.
yeah.
Right, right.
So
But that's being human.
that's being human, and it's okay. And we're not, like I said, we're not perfect. We're not robots. We're going to make
Right.
mistakes. But I appreciate that you have shared with us that we come out on the other side, right? It's okay
Yes.
to make those mistakes.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We all do it.
We all do it. It makes us human, joins us together. Well, Eileen, thank you so much for sharing again today and your journey, sharing your journey with us, and helping us see a little bit and get a glimpse into what it's like to help kind of clear a hoarder's house and those stories that are there. It's been a journey, and I appreciate you sharing it for sure.
Well, thank you. This has been a pleasure. I've loved meeting you.
Thank you. Me too. All right. Well, have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, what a fascinating conversation, right? I am just in awe of someone who can take these experiences that they live in life and put them into a book and then share them to the world. Writing is definitely not my forte, so I really enjoy having these conversations and getting to learn from people that have had other world experiences. And so I am just so grateful to Eileen for sharing all of this, her journey with us, and the revelations that she's had, and her desire to help people. As we got off the call today, she was telling me that there are 19 million people in the US that are affected by hoarding. And I just that's just a lot of people, right? That is so many people affected by this. And she said that as she was writing this book and she was telling people about it, that every time she would tell someone new that they either would know somebody who was affected by hoarding or they felt like that they themselves had some hoarding tendencies. And so it was just really helpful for them to hear about her story and the process and what she went through and what she has learned. And so if this sounds like you, if you heard this conversation and you were listening to this episode and you thought, gosh, that sounds like somebody I know, or that feels like me, go ahead and reach out. I mean, that was the one thing that she said she wished she had done differently when her cousin was alive, was just that she would reach out and had made that physical contact and wouldn't allow him to say no and to put her off and keep pushing her off. And so if you are feeling that in your gut there is somebody you need to reach out to, I would just recommend that you do that today. Reach out and make that human contact. And I think that's what stood out for me the most today. But of course, I would love to know what stood out the most for you. So come and join our conversation. There will be an Instagram post for this episode, and you can find me over there at Wanna Be Clutter Free. And then, of course, you can comment on Spotify or YouTube. You can leave a rating and a review on Apple. There are so many ways you can interact with this podcast. But of course, if all of that feels too much, I would just like to encourage you that the simplest way that you can support the show is actually just to click that subscribe button. It helps my show tremendously, and it's super easy, simple, free for you to do. Just click subscribe. All right. And finally, I want you to know that you can find the resources for today, all of those resources that we talked about. Just head over to wannabeclutterfree.com/294. Again, wannabeclutterfree.com/the number 294 for all the resources and links that we talked about today. And then I would love for you to join me next week when I will be chatting with Katie Joy Wells. Katie is a fellow podcaster who has just written her first book, and we talk about holistic decluttering, getting your family on board, and how to declutter for real life. It is a conversation that feels like two friends just chatting over coffee because we have so much in common, but I think you are really going to love her approach and learn something that is super simple, but incredibly powerful that you can implement right away. And so I hope you will join me for that. All right, until then, take care, keep things simple, reach out to somebody in your life. Even if you don't think that they have hoarding tendencies, just start making those human connections and be more involved with each other's lives. I would just love to encourage us to be more involved with each other's lives and hear our stories before it's too late. All right, take care. Know that I believe in you and that you can do anything you set your mind to. I'm Deanna Yates, and you've been listening to Wanna Be Clutter Free. I'll see you next week. Cheers.